Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Carlos Ulberg versus Da Un Jung, who might be Da Woon Jung. You know, Sherdog, Tapology, UFC, they all have different names. But Da Un Jung, as I'm accustomed to calling him, is 15 and 4, 29 years old, and he's got 1.5 inches of reach over 32-year-old Carlos Ulberg, who is 8 and 1 as a pro. Da Un Jung is a big guy. He matches the physicality of Carlos Ulberg, the size of him, and he's pretty damn strong himself. Both guys are strong, functional, 6'5", whatever the fuck they are. I think they're both 6'4", maybe, athletes. Da Un Jung, he's got 13 finishes in his 15 wins, 11 of them by knockout, 2 by submission, and 2 by decision. And his 4 losses come 1 by knockout, 1 by submission, and 2 by decision. He used to be a heavyweight, so he lost the decision at heavyweight to Jin Soo Lim, and by Kimura, his one submission loss to Roque Martinez. If you remember, he was in the UFC 2 years ago or so. But those were earlier in his career, and his last 2 losses have both come in the UFC, in his last 2 fights, I believe, and they're to Devin Clark by decision, in which he was taken down. That was pretty much the story of the loss there. And to Dustin Jacoby, who knocked him out in round 1. Dustin Jacoby, he's not known as the biggest powerful striker, but he is a very good striker. And he also kind of matches the size and strength of Da Un Jung. He's right in the realm with these guys here, big, strong guy, and he cracked Da Un Jung and knocked him out. Da Un Jung, though, he's a very dangerous guy. We've seen him put away some good guys in the UFC, the best of which is Kennedy Nzechukwu, who is the one guy to defeat Carlos Ulberg. And he knocked him out with one of the most beautiful series of elbows I've ever seen. Just insisted he was going through the guard, and he knocked him dead. But here, I think, look, he could knock out anybody, so he could knock out Carlos Ulberg. And, of course, the one way Ulberg lost was by knockout. But I think Da Un Jung might try to mix things up and take him to the ground. I think that would behoove him, if I can use that word, like a pretentious cocksucker. He is the much more seasoned fighter. This will be his 20th fight. And even though he's not used to fighting long, he's only got 2 decision victories. We've seen him do it in the UFC. So taking a guy like Carlos Ulberg down and out of his element, if you can even do that in the first place, I think it would be wise. But it's a pretty tall order, literally a tall order. The opposite of William Knight. He ripped William Knight to the mat plenty, but William Knight is the exact opposite of Carlos Ulberg in stature alone and activity as well. Carlos Ulberg, he's 8 and 1. The one loss is to Kennedy Nzechukwu, and it was a second round TKO, and it is largely attributable to just the chin. I mean, it's either the chin or the cardio, but it seemed like it was a combination of both. The cardio mainly in that Carlos Ulberg was working Kennedy Nzechukwu, kicking the shit out of him, and looked so good. And then he started to slow down a little bit and allowed Kennedy into the fight. But ultimately, what put him away was a big lead right hook. Not that it was that big. It was actually not the biggest hook, but it was right on the button, and it sat Carlos Ulberg down. So it is all I have to look to, and I think that was his debut. So you could attribute it to octagon jitters and whatever else. Maybe the chin, maybe cardio, but whatever. There's a little concern there. The fight, even though it seems a while ago, in reality, it wasn't that long ago, just a few fights ago for Carlos Ulberg. But since then, he's gotten some beautiful victories in the UFC. He has 6 knockouts in his 8 wins and just 2 by decision, one of which over Fabio Cherant in one of the shittiest fights ever, although it was cool to see Ulberg take him down towards the end of the fight. He ripped him to the mat from the clinch, I believe, the body lock. But he's got finishes over some, UFC fighters at the very least. Ihor Potieria, I always fuck up his name, but he knocked out Ihor in his last one. Nicholas Negomarianu and Tafon Nchukwi. He's got a mean left hook, which I think was responsible for all of those, although maybe the Pretoria one was a little different. Either way, I watched them all recently, and yeah, he's got a killer fucking left hook, Carlos Ulberg. He has movement on his side in this fight. I think he will control the range, even though he's given up an inch and a half to reach. I know Carlos Ulberg is. It seems like he's more comfortable, winning the jousting battle and fighting to a decision, but he's a very dangerous guy. I think if he does win this fight, and I'm predicting he does, it is by knockout. That's how I see this one going. I think Carlos Ulberg will take away a lot of the options from Jung just with his movement alone, not to mention his own athleticism and physicality, which matches or exceeds Jung's. I think takedowns aren't going to be available for him in the way that they were when Jung fought William Knight. And I think on the feet, Carlos Ulberg is the sharper striker overall, quicker in particular, and I don't know who I'd lean towards health-wise, but I think Carlos Ulberg also is the more durable guy, to be honest, even though he still has to prove himself, really. And he is 3 years older than Dao Jung, but at 32 years old, he's pretty much in his prime. And, of course, I'm sure he's getting better and better with each fight. Guys that are really young in their careers like that, whatever, that's what happens. Or, whatever. He's not young, he's 32, but he's only got 9 fights. And he already looks like a well above average UFC fighter. You could say he's had favorable matchups and whatever, but even with favorable matchups, you shouldn't be steamrolling guys like this. He's an exceptional fighter, exceptionally dangerous, and I'm picking him to get the win. Knockout round 1 is the pick. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened in round 2. And because it wouldn't surprise me so much if Dao Jung knocked him out, I also sprinkled a little on the even. On the under, I should say, at even odds for round and a half. But really, I think Ulberg winning by knockout is in round 1 and 2 is how I see this one going. Waiting to see the props, but I bet on his money line at minus 240 because whatever. But yeah, I'll wait to see the props, but that's how I'll be playing it. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.